Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding today's hearing, and Chairman Riley, Chairman Graham, thank you for joining us today. I know you've put in a lot of work on your report and the study, and we appreciate you being here today. I have an opening statement that I'd like to give to the chairman for the record. We'll dispense with that for now. It's been 9 months since the Macondo well accident, and we all grieve for the 11 families that lost loved ones and for those that were injured, and for the impact on several families along the Gulf Coast. I want you to know from a personal standpoint that I lost a brother in the oil drilling business, and so I have as much interest in conducting this industry as safely as possible as anybody in this room. But that said, I want to make sure that we facilitate a robust oil and gas industry because it's integral to our economic security and our military security. And as a person who was actively involved in the offshore energy business for over 30 years, I am keenly aware of keenly concerned about the recommendations in the Commission's report. I think it's interesting that you use the 3 Mile Island analogy because, as you pointed out, after 3 Mile Island, we have not started and completed the construction of a nuclear power plant in 30 years. It appears we're headed down the same road today with offshore drilling. We have a permit moratorium, a de facto moratorium in deep water, and we've got an incredible slowdown in shallow water drilling. And we're already seeing that show up in higher oil prices, higher gasoline prices at the pump, and reduced economic activity along the Gulf Coast. Here's the issue. Congress has passed legislation. You want Congress to consider legislation. The Department of Interior has issued new regulations. Lease sales have been canceled. Other areas of potential offshore for offshore activity have been put off limits again, and it's all based on a report that doesn't provide a full postmortem of what happened. And here's the key phrase that's used that causes the concern. You keep referring to systemic industry-wide failure. On chapter 4, on the report dated January 6, you have the following key finding. The well blew out because a number of separate risk factors, oversights, and outright mistakes combined to overwhelm the safeguards meant to prevent just such a happening. But most of the mistakes and oversights in Macondo can be traced back to a single overarching failure, a failure of management. Better management by BP, Halliburton, and Transocean would almost have certainly prevented the blowout by improving the ability of individuals involved to identify the risks they faced and to properly evaluate, communicate, and address them. So how can you reconcile between what's happened in the offshore energy business today to calling a systemic failure, a systemic industry-wide failure to report, which really just gets down to 3 companies? And we put the entire nation's economy in peril by doing this. Understand? Let me give you an example. What if we find out after we get the BP blowout preventer fully evaluated, it takes a $10 bolt that could cure the problem 99.999% of the time, and then this accident will essentially never happen? And that's about the ratio of accidents to wells drilled that we've got in deep water. So, we've gone overboard. So why did we use those words, systemic industry-wide failure? Because that's what's caused the paranoia here.
In 1963, Congressman, it was a single weld, as I understand it, that sank the Thresher submarine. And a subsafe system was developed, and we've not lost a subsafe submarine since. We lost one every 3rd year on average in peacetime before that. The reason that we concluded it's systemic and we didn't come in, or I didn't come in believing it was a systemic problem, I thought it was a single company that had blundered fatally, is because of the very large presence of those 3 companies throughout the oil and gas industry in the deep water and in the shallow water throughout the world. BP is, I think, the largest explorer of offshore oil and gas development. Transocean is the largest rig operator, and Halliburton is the largest supplier of resource help, such as cementing. It is no longer possible for most companies to test the cement, for example, that they're provided by a Halliburton. They no longer have the research capacity. Chevron does, maybe one or two more do, but most decided in the 80s and 90s to to contract that out. So that the cement that is provided is the cement that gets used. And the cement that was provided by the tests that Halliburton itself conducted and our commission had conducted was faulty. It is simply inconceivable to us that this was a problem so exclusive, so specially circumstantial with respect to one rig, especially since we know in Australia the cementing failed in the Montara well just a year and a half or so ago also. This is something that caused us to believe, and again, most of the people on that rig were Transocean employees, the people who were responsible for responding to the emergency, as I just described. That's the largest rig operator and owner in the world. It operates for everybody. Everybody hires Transocean. They also are implicated in this, in significantly failing to detect gas rising in the drill pipe. We concluded from that all companies are at risk if they're using these two contractors, or BP itself is probably at risk in other places. Now, we did hear, and we asked the Norwegian regulators, are you taking any actions against BP? The answer was somewhat surprising. No, we are not, because we do not see issues in the North Sea with respect to BP operations, and therefore we've taken no action to discourage their continued operation. That posed the question to us, well, what is it about the North Sea and the Gulf that has our companies operating safely and protectively in the North Sea, subject to a different set of regulators, and not in the Gulf? And that caused us to look very closely at the degree of oversight, the quality of regulation, and the capacity of the regulators, which we also fault.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the backdrop that I introduced earlier today, and that is we've got lease sales that have been canceled, offshore areas that have been taken off the availability list to be drilled on in the future, higher gas prices, lower domestic oil production, lost jobs, a hurt economy. With that, and a lot of that is because this report is being relied upon to continue moratoria, either de facto or regulatory, or however they want to be described. And it goes back to this system, this systemic, industry-wide failures comment. Co-Chairman William Riley stated on your January 6th release, on Chapter 4's release, my observation of the oil industry indicates that there are several companies with exemplary safety and environmental records. So a key question posed from the outset of this tragedy is, do we have a single company, that being BP, that blundered with fatal consequences, or a more pervasive problem of a complacent industry? Given the documented failings of both Transocean and Halliburton, both of which serve the offshore industry in virtually every ocean, I reluctantly conclude that we have a system-wide problem. That's your quote. Now, Mr. Riley, based on what I see of the internal inconsistency and the weight which this report is being given and the energy future of this country, I would respectfully ask the Commission if they will amend the report to remove the word system-wide industry failure. Will you do that?
Congressman, how would you defend the presence of walrus protection in polar bears in a response plan? Or how would you defend Mr. Hayward's telling me there's no subsea containment capability? Or the inadequacy of the response technology and the failure to invest in it over the last 20 years after we experienced the disaster in Prince William Sound? I think these speak for themselves, and the response plans were not confined to the three companies. All the majors that we looked at had the same, literally the same response plans and the same concern for walruses and the dead expert and all the other things we know. And several CEOs have said they found it embarrassing and were humiliated by it, and that had a lot to do with their decision to create the Marine Well Containment Corporation, which is a very significant and positive step on the part of the industry. So I don't think that you can infer anything other than, well, it sure looked like complacency, and when people say we never thought it could happen, and I include myself in that, we were complacent. I think the government was, the industry was, I was.
Well, again, the applications for permits that are filed are based on pretty much cookie-cutter requirements that the MMS, or what was formerly called MMS, used to issue.
And I don't exempt them from the criticism.
Okay, and so maybe there was a regulatory failure as part of it. I think we all agree that there was, and we all agree that BP had an integral part to play in this failure. But unfortunately, what's been condemned here is the entire industry, as well as the energy security of this country going forward. And I think it goes back to those words, industry-wide systemic failure. And I respectfully disagree with you. I don't think that we have that type of a failure. And I'd like to state for the record, I think those words ought to be struck from the report.
Well, let me just say that our report is 11 days old, and the degree to which there has been a delay in issuing permits or a de facto moratorium that's been referred to, I don't think has anything to do with this report. And we certainly don't expect or didn't intend that we would contribute to that. We, in fact, we're assuming that a number of these recommendations could be implemented coterminously with a resumption of activity on the part of the companies that weren't in any way involved in the Macondo disaster.
Thank you. I yield back.